There's a particular kind of loneliness that happens when you're a child sitting at the dinner table alone. Not because no one else is home, but because even when they are, you're still alone. You learn to make your own meals because no one asked if you were hungry. You walked yourself to school because no one offered to take you. You tucked yourself into bed because no one came to say goodnight. And somewhere in all of that silence, in all of those empty moments, you stopped being a child. You became your own parent, and no one even noticed. This is the psychology of a child who raised themselves. And if this was you probably didn't realize how abnormal it was until much later. Because when you're living it, when survival requires you to figure everything out on your own, you don't have the luxury of questioning whether this is how childhood is supposed to feel. You just adapt, you become self-sufficient, you become independent, and everyone praises you for it. But what they don't see is the cost. What they don't see is the child who had to become an adult before their brain was ready. Let's start with what it actually means to raise yourself as a child. It's not always dramatic. It's not always neglect in the way people typically imagine it. Sometimes your parents were physically present. They fed you, they kept a roof over your head, but they were emotionally absent, mentally checked out, too consumed by their own problems to actually parent you. So you learned to parent yourself. You figured out how to do your own laundry because no one taught you. You made your own doctor's appointments as soon as you were old enough. You navigated school problems alone because asking for help felt pointless. You taught yourself how to cook, how to manage lunch money, how to forge permission slips when your parents forgot to sign them. And slowly, so slowly you didn't even realize it was happening, you stopped being a child who needed guidance and became a small adult who needed no one. But here's what's crucial to understand. Children are not supposed to raise themselves. When you're forced to make adult decisions with a child's brain, when you're forced to manage adult responsibilities with a child's emotional capacity, something fundamental gets disrupted. You skip developmental stages that you can never get back, and those skipped stages leave gaps in your psychological foundation that affect everything you build on top of them. Psychologists call this emotional neglect, and it's one of the most invisible forms of childhood trauma because there's nothing to point to. No bruises, no screaming, no obvious abuse. Just absence, just silence, just a child left to figure out life alone. And because there's nothing concrete to point to, children who raised themselves often grow up thinking their childhood was fine. They tell themselves, other people had it worse. At least I had food and shelter. But trauma isn't a competition. And just because something could have been worse doesn't mean what you experienced wasn't damaging. Between the ages of 6 and 12, children are supposed to be learning how to navigate the world with the safety net of parental guidance. They're supposed to make mistakes and have adults help them process those mistakes. They're supposed to experience big, overwhelming emotions and have caregivers teach them how to regulate those feelings. This is how children develop a secure sense of self. This is how they learn that the world is safe, that people are trustworthy, that they are worthy of care. But when you have to raise yourself, none of that happens. Instead, you learn that mistakes have no safety net, that emotions are something you handle alone, that failure is something you bear in isolation. And, most devastatingly, you learn that your needs don't matter. Because if they mattered, someone would have noticed them, someone would have met them. So you stop having needs, or at least, you stop expressing them. You become so self-sufficient that needing anything from anyone starts to feel like weakness. This creates what psychologists call hyperindependence. It's when self-sufficiency becomes a trauma response. You're not independent because you want to be, you're independent because you had to be. And now, even when people offer help, even when support is available, you can't accept it because accepting help feels dangerous, it feels vulnerable. It feels like admitting you're not capable. Let's talk about what this looks like in adulthood. If you raised yourself as a child, you probably struggle with relationships. Not because you don't want connection, but because connection requires vulnerability. And vulnerability requires trust, and trust requires believing that someone will show up for you. But your entire childhood taught you the opposite. It taught you that people don't show up. So even when you're in a relationship, even when someone loves you, part of you is always waiting for them to disappear. Part of you is always preparing to handle everything alone. You might also struggle with asking for help. Even small things, even reasonable things. Because asking for help feels like admitting defeat. It feels like burdening someone. So you do everything yourself. You carry groceries in one trip even when it's too heavy. You solve your own problems. You never call when you're struggling. And people might admire your independence, might call you strong, but they don't see the loneliness. They don't see how desperately you sometimes wish someone would just notice you're not okay without you having to say it. There's also this thing that happens with emotions. When you raise yourself, you learn to suppress feelings because no one is there to help you process them. Sadness becomes something you handle in private. Anger becomes something you swallow. And over time, you become so disconnected from your own emotions that you stop knowing what you feel. Someone asks, "How are you?" and you genuinely don't know. Because you've spent so long not checking in with yourself that your emotional landscape becomes foreign territory. And here's something that often surprises people who raise themselves. You might be incredibly empathetic toward others, but completely unable to extend that empathy to yourself. You can see when someone else is struggling, you can offer them compassion, support, understanding, but when you're struggling, you're harsh, you're critical. You tell yourself to just handle it, to stop being weak, to figure it out like you always have. In adult relationships, you probably do one of two things. You either become the caretaker in every relationship, or you avoid deep relationships entirely. If you're the caretaker, you're drawn to people who need you. You fix their problems, you manage their emotions, and it feels good, because finally you're needed. But underneath, you're recreating the dynamic you grew up with. You're giving to others what you never received, and you're still not getting your own needs met. If you avoid deep relationships, it's because intimacy feels terrifying. Because intimacy means someone might see your needs. Someone might see that you're not actually as together as you appear. So you keep people at arm's length. You have friends but never let them too close. You're surrounded by people but still fundamentally alone, just like you were as a child. There's also a unique kind of grief that comes with realizing you raised yourself. Because at some point in adulthood, you look around at other people's childhoods and you realize how different yours was. You see parents who helped with homework, who asked about their kid's day, who noticed when something was wrong, and you realize that's what childhood was supposed to be. That's what you missed, and you can't get it back. So how do you heal? The first step is recognizing that you did raise yourself, and that wasn't okay. That shouldn't have happened. That was your parents' job, and they didn't do it. And yes, maybe they were struggling, maybe they were dealing with their own trauma, but their struggle doesn't erase your loss. You deserved to be parented. You deserved to have someone notice when you were struggling. You deserved to be a child. The second step is learning to reparent yourself. But there's a difference between survival self-parenting and healing self-parenting. Survival self-parenting is about getting through the day. Healing self-parenting is about meeting the needs you've been ignoring. It's about checking in with yourself the way a parent should have. It's about asking, what do I need right now? Not what do I need to do, but what do I need to feel okay? This might mean learning to rest without feeling guilty, learning to ask for help even when it's uncomfortable, learning to express needs even when you're terrified of being a burden, learning to be gentle with yourself when you make mistakes instead of being harsh and critical. This is the work of reparenting, and it's slow, it's uncomfortable, because your entire nervous system was wired for self-sufficiency. The third step is allowing people in, because if you raised yourself, letting people see your needs feels like the ultimate risk. But connection, real connection, requires letting people see you. Not the capable version, not the together version, the real version, the version that struggles, the version that sometimes needs support. And when you start doing this, something surprising happens. You realize that people don't leave, that your needs don't push people away, that the right people actually want to support you. Here's what you need to understand if you raised yourself. You are not broken. You are not defective. You developed exactly the skills you needed to survive your childhood. And those skills served you. They kept you alive. They kept you functional. But survival skills are not the same as thriving skills. And now, as an adult, you get to learn new skills. Skills that aren't about surviving, but about living, about connecting, about letting yourself be seen and supported and loved. You also need to know this. The child inside you who raised themselves, who figured everything out alone, who carried burdens they shouldn't have had to carry, that child is still there. And they're waiting for you. Waiting for someone to finally tell them, you didn't deserve that. You should have been taken care of. It wasn't your job to be the adult, and I'm sorry no one told you that sooner. The psychology of a child who raised themselves is complex. It's resilience and loneliness. It's strength and exhaustion. It's independence and isolation. It's being everyone's rock while secretly crumbling inside. And healing from it doesn't mean becoming dependent. It doesn't mean losing your strength. It means learning that you don't have to carry everything alone anymore, that you never should have had to, and that letting people in, letting people help, letting yourself need things, that's not weakness, that's being human. And you deserve to finally get to just be human. Not a child playing adult. Not an adult still parenting themselves. Just a person who is worthy of care, who is worthy of support, who is worthy of rest. You always were.